Hello everyone, this is Brian, and welcome back to Twilight Struggle Play the Experts, the game where I play the expert, and you wonder when I'll teach you how to always roll a 5 on your coups. Now, in our game against Row 21, our tournament game, we started off with a really excellent turn. We got some good rolls in our coups, of course, and then we managed to prevent him from getting any reward for having to hold the Europe and the Asia cards in his hand. So that got us off on a good foot. But then in the second turn, I made an unforced error. I foolishly allowed my opponent to take a coup with the CIA in turn 1, and that gave him the victory point extra for the, saved him victory point for the ops, and ended up he rolled a 6 and got into Iran, and it was just all sad and punishy. So that brings us to turn 3, where we do remain ahead on the scoreboard, but we have the bad guys in Iran. We do have the Middle Eastern scoring card. And let's look at the situation here. So this is what you would call a low ops hand. We do not have a lot of ops. And we especially don't have a lot of ops. We do have any ops, but we don't have a lot of ops because our biggest card, the 5-year plan, in addition to having its kind of, hand blorping effect on us, is kind of the best card to save for a future turn, because I would like to use that to dispose of some horrible scoring card later. Think of that as a good chance at saving me like 5 points. I kind of think of that as it could save us more than 5 points. It could save us 10 points or something horrible. But anyway, I like to save that card when I can. And so that leaves us with a collection of little dinky 1s and 2s. And there's one of the 2s, because this is turn 3, the Fidel card. I don't really want to play that for ops. I kind of want to play that for Fidel, because otherwise Fidel's not coming in until at least turn 7. And we've also noticed we're here on turn 3, more bad news. We don't have either decolonization or destalinization. In fact, we know he's holding destalinization, and that decolonization is somewhere back in the reshuffle because he spaced it. So I certainly don't want to not play Fidel to get over there. I'd like to have something over there now in those distant lands, because I don't appear to be getting any other way. So let's see. Let's look at the rest of our hand. Remaining abdication is going to pretty much be 1 op, because I don't see any particular value of getting 3 points in Romania right now. Blockade, normally would be a pretty powerful little thing if we got it in turn 1 or turn 2, or even better yet, it was in his hand. It would force him to relinquish to the space race one of our awesome decolonization, destalinization cards. At this point in turn 3, there's no way it's really going to do that. Or we could force him to relinquish it, and it won't come back till turn 7 anyway, I guess is the point. So that may just end up being likely to end up being an op, because honestly, at this point, I'd rather see it shuffled in, and maybe it'll come back in the late war by surprise and cause some, it's not very likely, but it's better than it's likely to be for us now, unless I see some amazing opportunity. Capture Nazi scientist. Here we come to the few excellent cards we have, and this one is one of them, and it is one that as soon as we play it is going to just give us 2 points. Now notice we can also take as many as 2 space shots this turn, a little unlikely given our hand, but I think for motion resolution I'd actually like to send into space, but I would rather play Capture Nazi Scientist first, because that's the one that's got only the next space race block is the one that only you have a 50% chance to go forward in, and the one after that you've got a 66.6666666 etc. chance to go forward in. So I would rather take the space shot against the likely to move forward and take the freebie against the one that's least likely to move forward, because my strategy is to move forward in the space race. I'm playing a little bit of Sanktness here, and I'm going to try to get those points and get up to the bear has landed as quickly as possible to get rid of horrible cards. There may be an awkward phase in the middle when I'm not allowed to space 2 cards if I get some of those hideous American events in the mid-war. But on the whole, that is my space strategy for this game. So then the other excellent card we have, or semi-excellent, certainly a potential headline card as well, is Vietnam Revolt, which would splorp us into Asia right over next to him in Vietnam and give us +1 on all of our cards if we use them entirely in Southeast Asia for the rest of the turn. Now, that would be a very strong headline contender for me if I had a little more ops. Because the fun thing about if I headline that, I could play even just a regular 4 card. Wouldn't have to be the China card, and just take over Vietnam, because it would make it a 5. It's one of the few ways you can get a card to equal a 5 in Twilight Struggle. Obviously, I'll be less likely to just give him a random extra coup against the Middle East, like I did last turn, now that I'm holding the next card, the Middle East card. So the Middle East card's looking pretty good for a domination. It's not looking as good as it would have looked if I hadn't woofed on the CIA last turn. But in any event, it's a card we need to... Scoring is coming. It's a this turn scoring. And so having talked about the other 2 cards, let's also look at his hand. We know that he's got, let's see, what do we say? He's got Comic-Con, socialist governments, de-Stalinization, and NATO. And then there was the one card I hadn't figured out what it was at the time. It fell in between the cracks of my brain, and so that was a little extra part of your homework. And I saw someone correctly pointed out that it was NORAD. So he's got NORAD. So he, let's just say, has plenty of ops, and he is going to probably space de-Stalinization, but the rest of those are all totally getting played, and they will be a lot of ops for him. So that brings us to the whole headline question. And the only 2 real contenders for a decent headline are Captured Nazi Scientists and Vietnam Revolts. Captured Nazi Scientist goes directly to where, the heart of the game is, which is getting points. And Vietnam goes to a region that we've already scored for the nonce. I mean, it can come back anytime, but we're at a stalemate in it. We don't know when it's going to score, and attempting to do anything with it would take ops away from trying to do anything where we really do want to score, which is kind of the Middle East. So I'm just not as excited about it. Obviously, I'm not even usually excited about getting 2 ops, but in this case, I think I'd like to take the 2 ops for Vietnam Revolt, because I know that I need to play Captured Nazi Scientists for the event one way or the other. So I am going to headline Captured Nazi Scientists. And I somehow dropped a bit of footage here. What happened is I headlined it, and he has headlined NORAD. So he is going to invest in NORAD. Now, notice he's already got a point in Canada that I think I gave him with, special relationship, so it doesn't take him as much to invest in it. We saw he had a whole bunch of other red cards, so he may not have had a lot of other interesting blue events. So, seems like a pretty reasonable headline, and so now we're going to have to deal with NATO, hope for a quick quagmire draw, and otherwise just suffer in silence. But he doesn't have Canada yet, so let's go ahead and we'll get our 2 points in victory points. That's a good place to get points. And that brings us to the coup. It is time for us to take a coup. And the thing is, on the one hand, I don't have any decolonization, destalizations, so we don't have any presence over in those faraway places. And he didn't get a guy into Costa Rica, so I could totally try to splam him down there and get myself established. Or I can just try to make a dent in the Middle East where the scoreboard is now. And look at our scoreboard. It's at 8. And we're not even out of the early war, and we got one more scoring coming. I'd like to try to make a difference in the Middle East. I mean, it's a gamble, but I can't make a big, nearly guaranteed coup this turn. I can just make a coup. So because the Middle East is in my hand, again, on points and regions especially, bird in the hand. I'm going to go for flipping the scoreboard where I can now, and I'm just going to hope that those other regions will sort themselves out later, that I get into them through coups and Fidels and things like that. Panama, well, it's in Central America, but I can get into Central America with Fidel. I know Fidel, I'm definitely playing for the event unless, some ungodly emergency happens. So I'd rather be in the place that I can be now if I can. Now, if we look at this coup here, so remember, I wanted to save the 2 points from Vietnam revolts, our other possible headline. If I coup Iran here, then on a 6, everything is extra hunky-dory. But on a 5, it is also pretty hunky-dory. So all I have to do is roll another 5. A 4, he would then play one of his big ops cards and get back in, and everything else would be a total woof. But, it flipped 2 victory points, and, so maybe, also I might be a little over invested in this because this is the result of my woof job last turn, that this problem wouldn't be here if I hadn't made the mistake last turn. So, am I over investing in this? Is it a sunk cost fallacy problem? I don't know, but I feel like it fits the strategy of going where the points currently are and staring down the barrel of that Middle East scoring card. Let's try to, even though it's 1 in 3 chance, let's just go ahead and take it. Kaboom! That was a 6. That was not a 5. That was a 6. So he is obliterated out of Iran, and let's see what he does. All right, NATO for influence, going with the big 4 card right away. And where's he going? Okay, he is going full Europe. All right, full Europe. So he wants to own Europe for all time, and I can't do anything about that. That's just fine. I think having at some cost won back our situation here, I will score my 6 points. So see, that was better than scoring whatever it was going to be 3 points. Or is it 4 points? 3 points? Something probably. I guess it was going to be 4 points. So there we go. Got our 6 points. And here, oh my goodness, another 4 card. Well, he certainly got enough ops this turn. He got ops, but we are turning our little tiny cards into points. So that's fine. But he is definitely exploding everywhere around the map, which is, obnoxious and unfortunate, and the exactly correct strategy for him in his position, because he doesn't have any way to get points until he gets a scoring card. So, he's got to suffer through our giant red victory point number, and the only place he has counterplay is on the map. So he's expanding. It's great for the Americans to expand through Angola into Zaire, if they, especially in turn 3, once the DEFCON is 2, so they can get up into those places and get ready. He's put some into Botswana. I think maybe he's trying to get me to, take a coup against him so that he'll get some ops points, because right now we've got him locked out for the ops points. But I'm not going to do that. He's going to have to just get to keep Botswana. Formation Resolution is going to space now because it's the only bad card we have in our hand. It's not that it makes a difference, but it is that I want to get a space shot. And we're having a fairly good space run this game. So we'll be getting to see his headline, and he is unsurprisingly spacing de-Stalinization. The Americans not so good with their technology this game, having some blow-ups on the launch pad, it appears. Sucks to be them. So, action round 4. All right, so the plan for the rest of the turn is we're saving 5-year plan. Fidel wants to go as the event, but he wants to do it preferably on the last action round to minimize the amount that our opponent can try to realign Fidel out if he's got, in case he has an extra spare 3 or 4 ops in his hand. So that unfortunately leaves us with the 2 stupidest cards, the Blockade and the Romanian, to do little one-op wonders with. And let's see what we can do. I think we're going to just overprotect North Korea so we don't get the China card shoved up to our nostrils into North Korea at the end of, that's one of the sort of plays the U.S. can do, is just really rip into that. And he could actually get up above us in influence if we didn't have a 3 card. Like, say, now. Sorry, if we didn't have a 4 card, then we couldn't even get back in control of North Korea. So anyway, it's good to try to get when you have a spare stupid point, it's a good place to put one if you don't happen to have undisputed control of South Korea as well already. So here comes the Truman Doctrine for influence. He did not find any European games to play with. Oh my! He has gone into Colombia. And this isn't even the last thing. Oh, man. So I respect that play because it just makes me feel all nasty inside. So here's the thing. Normally, it would be a sin to go into Colombia before the last action round because then I would just coup him back, right? But the thing is, and I would be as likely to get, if I coup him back, in general, I'm as likely to get in, be the one that ends up getting in. I'm probably actually a little bit more likely because he starts with a 1, and if I coup it and it goes to 6, and he's going to say, dang. Normally, I would be, he'd be seriously risking letting me into Venezuela. So he would normally do it on his last action round so that I would have to choose in my first action round between coupping Colombia to make him not do that, but then giving up my battleground coup, because then he could get a battleground coup against me in, say, in this case, the Middle East or somewhere, and, then I wouldn't have a battleground coup, and blah, blah, and blah. So, but what he's done here is, see, he knows he doesn't have 2 ops, and he's the scoreboard at 14. And he is giving me a very, very hard choice, because I can just ignore him. Let him walk right on in with, I know he's got a zillion ops, so he'll happily get into both Venezuela and Zaire and anything else he can, fill up Panama and go to Costa Rica, all those things. He has got lots of ops. Or I can coup him, but that means he's got time to take a counter coup, and I won't get the 2 points for military ops. And if I let him into South America, then, we don't know when South America's coming up, and here, this is one of those situations where do I just take, I'm sort of supposed to take the 2 points now based on my normal motto, but it's sort of, and then I might not get a coup in, because see, if he gets into Venezuela in his 5th action round, it lets him get into Brazil in his 6th action round, and so I'm not going to be able to drive him back out even with a coup, and that's even if I'm allowed to have a coup, because he could easily have, there's about 5 cards that he could headline in turn 4 if he has one that would prevent me from having a coup. I'd have to look to see if any of them are already, in the discard pile, but anyway, there's a lot of different ways. His favorite would be grain sales, but there's plenty of other ways. Cuban Missile Crisis, junta. I can just imagine a brutal turn 4 where he gets all up in that, and then he has it, not me, and it's so I've really only got one op to play with here, and so I may have to concede him that 2 points. I really hate to do it, but that was we're certainly going to acknowledge a extremely well timed play by the opponent here. That well thought out in the exact irritation it causes me, because of course when at 14 points in turn 3 I want to like run that score up, just try to slam it into 20 as fast as possible. So I don't know. I don't actually know what the quote-unquote right thing to do is here. You know, it's a philosophy, and I'm going to actually play against my normal philosophy here. It's like my old instincts from, you know, what I learned on TwilightStrategy.com coming back, and I just can't let him into South America for free. So here comes a coup, and we're in for 3, so I bet I know what's coming next. I bet he's cooing. Yes, he is. Here comes that. Well, he rolls a 2, so a fitting end as far as I'm concerned, because I don't have any more ops to play. He has actually zeroed it out. That is, in some ways, the best possible result. I guess if he had rolled a 1 and I was actually still in Colombia, I would probably have to play the Fidel card to just go into Venezuela instead of Cuba. But meanwhile, we've got Comic-Con the event, and so we kind of knew we were getting to fill a bunch of extra and almost completely irrelevant guys into Europe. Well, the guys in our main battlegrounds those are going to be our bastions against European control play later on. But meanwhile, let's just look through this stuff. Okay, and we're going to do what we said, play Fidel for the event. And we're in. So what's he doing in his last thing? The China card. Ooh, that's interesting. He must have stuff he wants to save, because it seemed like he had a lot of ops, and he could have held on to that. Oh, he had a lot of stuff he wanted to do. He probably didn't have any more 4s, and he wanted to do all those things. Maybe he didn't really need to do Indonesia. Who knows? We don't know what he had. He might have had stuff he really wanted to maintain. Maybe he got decolonization again, and he's just going to carry it along until the glaciers return. But let's see. Here is our turn 4 hand. We are now in the mid-war. We start the mid-war with an excellent victory point position and with an excellent space race position, because we are going to get to see his headline card. And let's just look at that. He is, oh dear, that is going to be some excitement. So he is starting right off with an Indo-Paki war. So that is, I've had worse. I'd much rather see that than, say, grain sales, especially looking at what my hand looks like. So he's going to start off, he's going to get his 2 ops, he's going to take a shot at India, and he's got a 1 in 3 chance, which, you know, I would rather him have an even lower chance, but it's what we had time to do with our ridiculously low ops hand last turn. We've had good die rolls and maybe not so much good in the way of cards, especially looking at these cards, which we'll come to in a minute, are horrible. Our cards are horrible because we have gotten some of his most grotesque little events there. We've got Voice of America, which is one of the most awful because it lets him take 4 of our things away from almost anywhere, and then we only get 2 ops. There is Special Relationship, which is just going to reinforces Europe, so we don't really care. Since NATO's not active, we don't care about that. Duck and Cover is bad because of... Well, it's bad because it's bad. It's bad because if we can't play it at DEFCON 2 or we'll cause nuclear war, and if we play it any other time for anything other than Space Race, then it gives him presumably 3 points, which is a high number of points we don't want to give him. So I think that guy's definitely going to space. Colonial Rearguard gives him 4 guys in Africa, which, oh boy, letting him have even more in Africa. Usually it's the Americans that are desperately trying to cling to a foothold in Africa, but apparently not this game. That's going to not be super, super fun. And then there is Ussuri River Skirmish, which would give him 4 grunty points in Asia, anywhere he wants, anytime he wants, assuming he has, or it would just give him the China card face up and ready to play, which is nearly equally horrible. So those are just some really bad cards. Now we do have at least a few decent ops to go with. We have We Will Bury You, we have Flower Power, and then we have the card we saved. We brilliantly saved the 5-year plan, which unfortunately is just going to kind of make our, this time, this is the hand we sort of didn't want to see with it, although it would have been worse to have, grain sales also. We could imagine a worse hand, but it's a pretty ickily bad hand, and this is, we are in the place where we can't space 2 cards, so space candidates are definitely Duck and Cover, and then either Ussuri River Skirmish, or I may actually have to space 5-year plan depending on how things go with the first space shot and so forth. Now, headline cards. One card that I would be really tempted to headline here in some circumstances would be We Will Bury You, because it would tend to put us direct, it usually gets us 3 points, and that would take us right up to the 17 boundary, and then we would be trying to get, just to try to get the scoreboard up to the top. The problem with it in this case is, well, A, it burns 4 ops, so we may badly need to repair some of the damage of the other cards. But more importantly, it doesn't let us have a coup, a battleground coup, because it takes the DEFCON to 2. And that means that we would be just stuck in Africa. And I kind of want to be able to, I need to probably be thinking about getting a coup in Africa. So particularly since I see that he's not taking my coup away with his headline, I think that We Will Bury You is maybe not so indicated. And that brings me to the one card I haven't discussed, which is Cambridge 5, which is a low ops card that also could do something. It might produce some, well, it will produce some intelligence one way or the other, because even if he doesn't have a scorecard, then we know he doesn't have a scorecard. But it could produce something interesting like finding out he's got the South America scorecard or something like that could let us really, or if he's got the Europe scorecard, we might be able to really rip into that and make his life miserable. I don't know. That might not be as plausible as it is sometimes. But nonetheless, it's a card that does potentially something, and even if it tells us he doesn't have any scoring cards, well, at least that means we have some time. So the kind of at the starting gate plan for this turn is headline Cambridge 5, assuming that doesn't produce some kind of crazy piece of information, then have a massive coup in Africa to try to establish a definite base, probably in Zaire, with some decently sized card. It's a card big enough to guarantee us getting in, which actually may in this case end up needing to be one of our 4 cards. And then we're going to, when any dust settles, we're going to need to space, duck, and cover. And depending on how that goes, so I can imagine if duck and cover goes into space, well, first of all, we get 2 more points. Or do we get 3 more points? Wow, look at that. If we headlined We Will Bury You and got to 3, and then duck and cover went in, and he doesn't even have a scoring card, that would be the game. But that's putting a lot of. But then we don't get into Africa for sure. We don't get any intelligence from, and we've burned the 4 card. That's really out on the, and we're just counting on him not to have any scorecards and not to succeed in this coup, in this war in India. oh, it's a thin chance to win the game, but this feels like one of those, like a thin chance to win the game when we're kind of feeling the game slip away from us is one thing, but it is there. I mean, it's good to realize it's there. We Will Bury You headline, and spacing something for 3 points would get us over the top if we got all lucky if he didn't get any points. But seeing a headline that is 1/3 likely to produce points anyway from him, and the fact that he very well might have a scoring card, and it could be a good one. It could be Africa. It could be Europe. It could actually even be Southeast Asia at this point, because we're pretty non-present down there. So yeah, so I'm gonna back away from the brink and not do that. Anyway, yes, spacing duck and cover, and if duck and cover goes, then that means I could take my second space with, say, 5-year plan. Well, yes, 5-year plan. I could take my second space with 5-year plan, meaning that I would have an extra card at the end of the turn, which I could, if 5-year plan also went into space, that I could discard freely using the bear has landed power, could discard the Voice of America, which would be a thing. So basically, either 5-year plan or Usuri River Skirmish goes to space, and that is the overall out. And the rest of it is mostly trying to survive his horrible card, mitigate the damage that's going to be caused by playing these cards, prepare for them, and try to make them as unawful as possible. All right, so Cambridge 5 as a headline. And here comes the Indo-Pakistani War. And we survive. Okay, so he gets his 2 ops, but we survive. And Cambridge, oh my goodness, the plan has not survived contact with intelligence. That is pay dirt. Look at that right there. So he has a pretty serious scoring card here. He could end up getting as many as 8 points for that if he, really ripped in some point. He's more likely to just grab a few of the things and get 6-ish points for it, depending on if we come rushing into the other things. But this gives us... Okay, so here is where the work on the current scoring card, not the distant, painful one, philosophy comes in. So I'm giving up my chance to get a coup in Africa here, because I think I need to play. I need to play for this scorecard. I need to deny him these points. So we put our guy into Thailand, and I'm going to go ahead and use the China card, because we're going to need space in the hand here. And we are just going to rip our way into these places. So now we've turned a scoring card. Now he has to play hard for his scoring card. And so he's going to take his coup, because he doesn't want us to get a coup in Africa. So he is coupping Libya, getting a decent roll. He was mostly doing that to keep me out of Africa, which is certainly in his interest. And he's keeping us tweaked using NORAD to tweak us in Thailand, but we will now play hard for that. I guess I'd better probably over-control that. Do I go to Libya? Let's do that. Let's just keep it. Let's keep him out of there. I want to... yeah. I've got this positional thing where I'm kind of both saving up for OPEC and the potential, still keeping the potential out there for Middle East control. I realize that's positional versus the current card, and I could put a point into Burma instead. Well, I don't know. Keep going back and forth, but I guess I'm going to go... In a moment of weakness, I played for position. What happens? The Marshall Plan for influence. Look at all his ops. He has certainly had ops this game. He can complain about his die rolls, but he can't complain about his ops. Okay, so he is filling up some Africa, filling up his current scoring card, and I just don't want to use... My only real good ops is We Will Bury You. I'm going to let that point go and just get on about spacing things. I feel like I need to clear out some of these obligations in my hand or it could get really dire. So we're in with duck and cover. That's nice to see. All right, so here's a scoring card, and, we'll note for the future, I could have prevented one of those points by playing 1 point into Burma, so, did I do a bad thing? Do I end up getting it to 19 and then going all the way down? That'll be sad. This is the place where I would sure love to be able to play We Will Bury You. But I can't. So here's this 5-year plan card. If I could go about this in a way where I endure all of those other horrible cards, including Voice of America, and then I would still have 5-year plan next turn. It would just be that my board position would be super obliterated. Or I could space 5-year plan. And if 5-year plan goes to space, then the bear would have landed and I would be able to immediately discard the Voice of America. And if the bear doesn't land, then I would still be able to hold Voice of America and not endure it yet. So it would be a slight relief to the immediate enduring of something that would be pretty horrible. But on the other hand, that would mean I'm going to have to endure Ussuri River Skirmish, I think. So, but I can maybe do that with, I could prepare Asia using We Will Bury You. So I think I'm going to go with the spacing this strategy. I always hate to let that card go, but sometimes against a really horrible hand of American cards, you have to go ahead and clean the thing up. So I'm going to let it go, which probably guarantees I'll draw the... Makes me feel like, well, I'll definitely be drawing the African scoring card in a minute, right? But let's play it that way. Okay, it doesn't go in, so we're going to be stuck with Voice of America, but we don't have to play it. So he is playing the China card for 2 points. He sees which side his bread is buttered on. He needs to survive, he needs to survive the scoring track, and he is correctly playing in that regard. So I'm going to start, I need to prepare Thailand, prepare India, get some extra stuff on here. He gets an extra guy in France so that it's harder for us to take from him. Okay, he is... Interestingly, coming into, I always would rather play Sadat after I've forced a point of influence into Egypt so that I can get in there. And that's interesting because that allows me to... See, if he had a point in Egypt already when he played it, he would go to control, and then it's much harder for me to get back in there. But because he did it this way... I think it's actually worth it to me to use We Will Bury You to grab it, because now Egypt can stay secure-ish, for reasonably small values of secure. And I guess I'll go ahead and just grab countries in... Is that the right move? Grab countries in Asia. Well, certainly Asia's about to come under threat, so let's just do that. Maybe I should have put one more into Thailand. Now that I've already clicked the button, let's see what happens here. Space race. The American rockets melt down on the launch pad again. Good luck with your technology, sir. And I've realized that playing the China card also gave me room in my hand, yes, to save Ussuri River Skirmish. So I'm going to go ahead and endure only colonial rear guards and see, because Ussuri is something I'll be able to space next turn, and that's fine. And that might help me get Voice of America dropped into a deep, deep hole on the moon. We will see. So here he comes, letting him do his stuff. And of course we had to let him into all those African things. And I think I just need to go ahead and get my ops for this turn. So I'm going to take a coup, and we'll see if that turns out to be a bad idea. Just saving 2 more points. All right, and his final, good. At least he had a bad card among all his giant ops cards. Here's another one, but we're going to make it, he's not going to get anything from this. So my goal here is, of course, the temptation is to pull 2 points out of Italy, but I need to make sure that he doesn't have any points to spare here. So I need to make it be places that he has to put the influence back in. And so that's actually, because of NORAD, it's Canada and 1 point from West Germany. Because I'm realizing that I'm probably about to lose Thailand on NORAD here. I probably could have avoided that, but I was staring at it. Was a little bit, I guess I miscalculated. I had it overprotected, but I guess I needed it double overprotected. I was sort of misunderstanding, the level of Holocaust I was facing there in colonial rear guards and needing ops and, all these Surrey River skirmish and all of that. So anyway, maybe he won't put 2 points back into Canada. No, but he does. He does. So that's just it. Because if I can take a coup in Africa, I'm going to have to take a coup in Africa. Especially when I draw Africa. I have drawn Africa. But it is turn 5, and that gives me first of all, the blessed relief from playing that turn 4 hand anymore, and that gives me a chance to turn it over to you to do some homework. And hey, I can offer you a 14-point lead on the scoreboard to make you feel better, if that makes you feel any better about the cards. So take a look at this and think about what he's doing, and let's go ahead and look at his headline card, because why not? He is offering us puppet governments, and you all know what puppet governments means. So with all of these things in mind, and keeping in mind what I've pointed out about the relationship between the Africa card and Thailand, go ahead and tell me what you would headline, and which bodily function noise would you make as you did it, and then what would your plan be for this turn? What would your plan be, or would you go to plan B? And can we preserve some dignity for world communism here? Help me do it. Let us preserve the dignity of world communism, and I will see you next time on Twilight Struggle. Play the experts.